Welcome to the Angel Rewatch, a spoiler-free retrospective podcast on Angel. I'm William.
And I'm Derek, and this is a podcast for Billy, originally airing October 29, 2001, written by Jeffrey Bell and Tim Minear. Lila's upset when Gavin is in her office talking to the man Angel freed from the prison to save Cordelia from her visions. It turns out that his name is Billy, and that he's a part of Angel's fictional version of the Kennedys. Billy's congressman uncle comes in and escorts him out of Lila's office, and Lila threatens Gavin. Gavin gets very angry and proceeds to bash Lila's face in, while outside, Billy smiles. Cordelia is training to fight with Angel. At Wesley's apartment, Wesley congratulates Cordelia for taking the initiative, which, like all things Wesley says, is mildly condescending. Cordelia confronts Wesley about his feelings about Fred, which no one, the audience included, was aware of before now. Cordelia tells Wesley to just tell her, but then she has a vision. A woman is brutally attacked and killed by her husband, and they all gather up to go a saving, but then Cordelia completes her vision. The woman was killed a week ago. After some investigating and an explanation about why the team still has police access without Kate, they find Billy in a surveillance photo before the murder occurred. Cordelia and Angel are both racked with guilt and process it in different ways. Angel goes rushing off into danger, and Cordelia steadily goes into danger. Angel first goes to a bruised and bleeding Lila, who is rather unhelpful for obvious reasons, but drops a few hints. Angel then goes to Billy's mansion, where Billy is arrested. Billy confessed to killing the woman in Cordelia's vision, and the police are there to take him in. When Billy touches one of the officers, it appears there is something corrupting in his touch. Cordelia goes to meet with Lila in a scene that makes the whole episode worth it. They trade acid-tongue barbs at each other, and Lila explains Billy's powers. He makes man tap into a primordial kind of misogyny and turns them into animals. Cordelia wants more assistance, but Lila refuses. Cordelia tells her that no self-respecting bitch would take this all lying down. Billy escapes from police custody after corrupting one of the officers and leaves trails of man-on-woman violence in his wake. Wesley takes a sample of his blood, and Angel rushes off, trench coat flapping in the wind. Back at the Hyperion, Wesley and Fred look at Billy's blood and discover he's half demon. And then Wesley gets infected. He gets progressively more terrible, and it's a never-ending sequence where he chases Fred around the hotel. There's also a part where Fred falls and lays on the ground because, of course there is. Meanwhile, Billy goes to his cousin, who's that guy who guest starred in pretty much every pretty white people show in the early 90s. It's unknown what Billy wants until Angel shows up later. The cousin tells Angel that Billy wanted money, and Cordelia has already been there. She wanted Angel to stay out of it, but of course Angel doesn't. Cordelia corners Billy on an airstrip. She's about to shoot him down with a crossbow until Angel stops her. He doesn't want her to kill, and while they argue, Billy touches Angel's face. Everybody's worried that Angel's going to turn, but he doesn't because of BS reasons explained later. Anyway, there's a fighting scene, and Cordelia tries to shoot Billy with a crossbow. She never gets the chance because Lila shows up and shoots Billy repeatedly in the back, killing him. Meanwhile, Fred is under siege from Gunn and Wesley. She knocks Gunn out on his assistants and creates a device to knock out Wesley. So, I guess that's supposed to make victimizing her for half the episode cool. Fred shows up at Wesley's apartment where he's apparently been crying a lot. Fred tries to get Wesley to come back at work, but he doesn't want to go. He's too ashamed for what he did. Fred tells him it's something that happened to him and not who he is deep inside. She gets him to agree to come back, and as she closes the door, Wesley is heard sobbing inside. And that's the end of the episode.
So, I liked getting the consequence side of that vision thing.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently I feel very different from a lot of people, but I actually really enjoyed this episode.
Well, this is probably going to be the first episode where we disagree strongly with each other. Or the most differing of opinions we've probably ever been. Because I like parts of this a lot, and then there's parts of it I really don't enjoy at all.
Right. I thought that this, I mean, yes, it's going for very edgy, and it has a very not subtle metaphor about domestic abuse going on. But I thought...
What? Are you trying to tell me that this wasn't subtle?
Maybe not. But like older Buffy episodes, I still thought having the supernatural element mixed in with the message you were trying to get across still worked really well, or at least it worked for me. And I thought that they were able to get me really invested, and honestly, this episode was the most horrifying thing that I've seen in the show, in a show about demons and monsters and everything. Like, I actually got pretty scared for Fred towards the end of the episode.
That's interesting. Because, okay, my biggest problem with the episode is the Wesley and Fred stuff. Because I feel like they're a little too gleeful in what they're doing to Fred. And there's a little too much of Fred running around the hotel and being the standard pretty girl in a horror movie. I feel slightly better that Tim Minear who wrote the episode, hates her falling down almost as much as I do. It still happens, though.
Right. It definitely turns into a horror film at the end of the episode, full with Wesley having the axe, he being an axe-wielding maniac.
It's The Shining, but at least Wesley is toned down enough. The reason it works at all, and I don't think it really works for me, is that Wesley is not maniac Jack Nicholson with the axe. He's very calm and very methodical about going after her.
See, that to me, that felt really terrifying.
Well, that's what I mean. That's the one thing I sort of like.
Okay.
If it was a little bit less of them, and I'm not suggesting that Fred needs to Home Alone it, but maybe just a little bit of her just running around. Less of that and more of her actually doing something until she gets into that room. Which, by the way, the fact that she sets up that trap when Wesley is already about halfway through that door and has clear line of vision. And she's able to set up the trap, hide, and he doesn't know. Breaking a little bit of believability for me there.
That's fine. Of course I love that moment.
Which moment? When she knocks it out?
When she Home Alone. When she builds the mouse trap.
Yeah. I don't love that moment because I think they're almost required to do it. Like, I don't think they should be praised for her saving herself because that just needs to happen after everything that has happened so far. And I'm not suggesting that she needs to set up elaborate traps, which apparently she could do in like less than a minute.
Well, it's interesting because we had seen the weird like suitcase shoot an axe thing decapitation device last week, so this felt very Fred-like.
Oh no, as far as traps go, this is probably a more believable trap because that just seemed like overly complicated. You made a catapult with an axe.
Right. But it also, speaking back to how the Wes and Fred thing went, I felt like they had been like building up consistently the tension and it becoming like progressively worse and worse and worse. And it had this kind of momentum to it that, I was really on edge throughout the whole sequence. And so it kind of has this really nice resolution and relief that she got out of it because of how, like how that scene is shot. He goes into the cabinet or the wardrobe or whatever and flips the door open and you see her in the mirror just standing against the wall.
I do like that moment. I just think there's too much. She is too much damselized or whatever. There's too much of brutalizing Fred, and it stops being terrifying to me, and it just starts to be repetitive and boring, and I'm kind of over it.
I could see that. Part of what I liked about it is because they had, like, there's the whole metaphor and all the discussion about misogyny in the episode. You had been, like, ramping up throughout the episode. Like, there's that one scene where Angel meets the taxi cab, or there's that taxi cab driver that had killed one of his fares or beat up one of his fares.
No, we don't mean that. We meet somebody else who has very strong opinions about it.
And Angel takes, like, huge offense of the guy going, I'm just saying, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
which I just got the sense that guy's a jerk. I didn't get the sense that Billy had actually touched him. Maybe he did.
Oh, no. Billy hadn't touched him. But it was dealing with the misogyny you might see in everyday life.
Yes.
And so we had been building up and talking about it throughout the episode so that it finally gets to the horrifying revelation of, not that, like, of what it could go, the extreme of abuse can be, where the person is literally hunting someone down, trying to kill them. And I found that...
Okay. Here's where I'm getting angry about again. Because this is where I'm bothered by it a lot. So, moment one, Lila gets her face bashed in, and we cut away to that, like, oh my god, what a shocking moment. And then Cordelia has her speech about it's not the pain, it's the helplessness. Right there, I have all I need to know. And just Billy in general, the way he plays it. Everything I need to know why they need to take down Billy. I got it. So I have a very big problem that they think that we need to put the good girl in danger because no one's going to care about Lila because, she's evil. Which, it's not just that I like Lila the character, because Lila's a horrible person. But she's still a person. Like, I don't, as morally ambiguous or just downright evil as Lila is, I don't think they've ever stopped writing her and portraying her as a human. So when Gavin brutalizes her, that's all at that point I'm pretty much set with what Billy can do and what the menace of him is, that I don't need to see a 10-minute sequence where Wesley stalks Fred around the hotel.
I can see that. Part of me, like, it is definitely going for, it is shocking and edgy, and I can see how it could come across as manipulative because it's definitely trying to make you feel a certain kind of way. Mm-hmm.
There's just so much of it that it just goes over the top into unbelievability for me. And some of those things are, like, what Gavin... I mean, we'll get into my theory about why Wesley acts different than Gunn and Gavin. Because Gunn and Gavin are, I wouldn't say comical, but they are very kind of stereotypical, angry things that they're spewing at Fred and Lila, respectively. Where Wesley is much more contained.
Right. Which is, like, the most... That's also what's so disconcerting about the Wesley scene, is because he seems so calm.
Yes.
But
I want to move... there's going to be a lot of feedback, so I want to... We're trying to get through this as quickly as possible, but I do want to say the part that I really love about this episode is the Cordelia... I really do like how Angel deals with it, but that's pretty much par for the course. It's how Angel deals with most things.
Right.
I just like that we're keeping a through line with him, that when he feels guilty, he goes and punches people.
Yeah, he goes into action mode. I love Angel and Cordelia both together and separately in this episode.
But the Cordelia thing I love so much because she goes out and she just gets stuff done. And she's on her own, like, kind of investigative thing while we follow Angel just going around pretty ineffectively, just threatening people, because that's what he does. He gives people empty threats and then he runs off into the night. where Cordelia just goes to Lila's apartment, gets what she needs, then finds Billy's cousin, and then she shows up at the airstrip, and I have no doubt that she would kill him.
Can we just remark on the fact that she tasers him in the crotch?
Does she?
Yes.
I was thinking, Fred kicks Wesley in the crotch and stabs him with, like, some kind of nails. That's what I remember.
Right.
I do not... Oh, yeah, that's right, because she does taser him. She goes up to him, and then he gets up.
Yeah, because he goes to the whole, like, oh, you're here to complain, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. Yeah. Taser you in the crotch.
It's just... She's so matter-of-fact about it, and she's not overly emotional about it, and she just recognizes that she needs to do this, and she's the only one that can. Or maybe not the only one she can, but she's the best person for the job.
Well, and she feels so much responsibility for it, and I really love how they set up her motivation in the episode when they have that scene between Angel and Cordelia when they're talking about it, where she kind of breaks down in front of him. And then suddenly, she just goes into such a focused mode that she's not doing, her typical Cordelia goofy talking and everything else. She's just so determined and matter of fact, like you said.
Well, she shows real maturity about how she deals with this. Because, I don't think Cordelia in any kind of circumstance would be goofy about it, but she might be deflecting or overly quippy about some things or whatever. She's just very serious about it. Like the Lila and Cordelia scene has the perfect amount of sass in it, where they trade the quips about the shoes, and then Cordelia goes immediately back into where can I find Billy? Right.
That scene is already amazing, but they also the dig at Lindsay was really nice.
Oh, well, yeah. Obviously.
I'm not Lindsay. I'm not going to change sides whenever things get tough.
Well, the other thing I like about that is how it sets up the moment where Lila is the one that kills Billy. Comes out of nowhere and just empties a clip into him.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that she's not Lindsay, but she does purposely give Cordelia enough information, whether that's subconsciously or she's making a conscious effort to do that Cordelia knows what she needs to do next.
Right, and she gives Angel, little hints, but not enough.
Mm-hmm.
I
really like when Angel comes in and he wants all the information about that, and he asks her about her face or whatever, and she says, "Don't pretend that you care about this." Because he doesn't.
Except that he is actually really shocked by it.
Mm-hmm. And he doesn't say, maybe he does, but he doesn't make an effort to say that he does. Like, he doesn't correct her.
Yeah, I also really like how that scene starts off with him kicking in the door, and, like, she jumps. It's like she...
Of course he kicks in the door.
Yeah, it'll play into the guy talking about his melodramatic things, but
That's not melodrama.
But how quickly he drops off his tough guy intimidation thing once he sees her face. Like, yeah, he hates Lila, but he still does treat her like a human being.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
As much as he threatens to kill her, which I feel like is kind of a weekly thing at this point, I do feel like most of those threats are empty.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he would... last year, surely he probably would have killed a human if he got to a point. He condemned a bunch of humans to die.
Right. He, just got to the edge of that line before he could...
But I don't think at his current mental state that he would ever kill a human, and if he did, it would be an accident. Like, he wouldn't purposely go after her. When Lila figures out that all his threats are empty, then he's going to have a problem. But right now, she is terrified of him.
Right, and I really like... whenever Cordelia goes and sees Lila, And she's like, oh, I've seen Angel's dark side. And Cordelia has the line of, no, you really haven't.
Because, I mean, I want to correct what I said. It's not that Angel doesn't care about her face, it's that Lila doesn't think he could care at all.
Right.
Because Lila confronts Angel like they are mortal enemies and just doesn't... I don't even think that Lila really sees Angel as a person. She sees him as a thing to compete with.
Right. He's facilitating the same role that Lindsay did.
Yeah, she needs somebody to compete with. For whatever reason, whatever that says about her, it seems to be a definite character trait that she can't just be happy. She has to find an enemy, and she has to try to win one over on them.
Right. Like, that's how she gets satisfaction, or that's the kind of drive that is behind her. Is there anything else that you want to talk about with the Angel and Cordelia stuff?
I mean, I really do like that they're training.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a partnership now between them. Like, they feel on the same levels, especially how much time both of them get on screen in this episode.
Yeah.
And I think it is definitely, it feels like they're going towards something.
What possibly could that be? Well, not just that, but I think since the end, I hope it's not just that. I hope it's that they are recognizing that Cordelia is just as interesting as Angel, and they're going to treat her like the co-star or female lead of the show, which is what she is. And I think ever since he came back in season 2, that's what they've been doing with Cordelia. And
it's obviously working.
I mean, so the first season and most of the second season, it is completely Angel's show. And there's these people around him that are interesting. But now I feel like we're moving into much more of an ensemble piece. Which is interesting because Buffy did the exact opposite. It was an ensemble show to start off with, and then as they went along, it became Buffy's show completely.
Right. And, I mean, I obviously love the direction that they're going now. It feels like the characters become more realized, and they feel like they have their own motivations and characteristics and flaws, and it makes them feel like real people.
Yeah. I mean, that core trio of Wesley, Angel, and Cordelia, I think are... I don't want to compare it to Buffy, but I'm going to anyway. Because I think they're more interesting than anyone on Buffy besides Buffy. Maybe Giles, but... I think they're more complex and have different things going on.
Right. It's the thing that we see the complexity on the show.
And it's funny because... the reason to compare them to Buffy is because they all come from there. And on Buffy, they were all pretty one-dimensional.
Right.
I mean, Cordelia maybe got a little bit more than the other two, but Angel and Wesley definitely. Wesley was just a goof and a foil for Buffy, and Angel was her boyfriend who could sometimes turn evil.
Right. They all fit a very specific role, and they felt like characters in a TV show.
And the thing is that those who they are now doesn't contradict who they were.
Right, exactly. Like, they already have a sense of history. Like, back on Buffy, they felt like their characteristics were how they relate to Buffy. But because they now have a sense of history...
Well, they're own people.
Right, exactly. So, we'll have more to say on this episode.
Well, yeah, we got a lot. So... There's a lot of feedback.
Yeah. So is there any little things that you want to talk about before we move on?
There is a little thing that will become my favorite moment. It might involve Cordelia.
Okay. Well, my favorite moment might involve the ending.
Okay, so. And we haven't really talked about either of those things in depth, so...
Right.
Now we're going to get into it. I mean, I'm not super positive on this episode, but I'm more positive than feedback, it appears. You are the episode's sole champion.
I feel like I have to put on my boxing gloves and try and
Please don't.
jump into the ring.
No, don't. That's a poor metaphor.
Bad metaphor?
Half our feedback are female.
It's about misogyny.
And you just said you were going to put boxing gloves and fight.
So let's get the noose. I'm putting the noose around my neck. I'm ready.
Okay.
So first up in feedback, we have Megs, who says, my biggest problem with this episode is that the idea that all men are dormant misogynists is really insulting and pretty ridiculous. That is misogynist in itself, really, because it implies that it is part of man's evolutionary biology to be dominant over women and to treat them as animals, and men have overcome this primordial feature of themselves. There are matriarchal societies that are so different from ours, and so to me, that ends that idea right there. The dialogue is clunky because they're trying to squeeze this horror element into an analogy for domestic abuse, and it really doesn't fit. Domestic abuse doesn't happen suddenly. A more apt metaphor here is maybe serious brain injury that alters someone's personality. There are actually many analogs they could have alluded to. Maybe violent pornography, since Billy likes to watch. Ugh, so creepy. Or even just that Billy's raging misogyny and psychopathic behavior made him want to play out these scenes in real life, but not get his hands dirty. But implying that most men are barely keeping it together in the face of the temptation to rape and beat women? Wesley's scenes, particularly at the end, are both odd and emotional. I could see him second-guessing himself because he physically did try to murder Fred and would be terribly broken up about it, especially since he has romantic feelings for her. And, well, she isn't going to want to be alone with him now, right? But would he really think he was always a mood change away from murder? In that case, he should probably cut himself off from humanity in much the same way Angel has been doing up until very recently. So thank you, Megs.
Okay. So this comes up a lot in feedback, that the point of this episode is saying that all men are misogynists. Now, I did listen to the commentary. And even before that commentary, my reading on this episode was they left it vague whether it's something that happens to men, that Billy does this to them, or he brings something out in them. Now, I think my reading of the Wesley situation is that Billy brings something out in Wesley. The fact that they call it primordial misogyny suggests that it's in all of them, but I think that's where people are objecting to the idea. But I more read it as, I think primordial misogyny is stupid curse speak, that they have to give a magical basis to it. I'm more reading it that Billy infects them with his own beliefs, even if that's not what's actually in the episode. So anyway, right. What I was saying is that I think it brings something out in Wesley. I think Gunn and Gavin are infected and act different. I think that's why Gunn and Gavin are so angry, and so it could just be bad writing, or it could be intentional that they say the cliched domestic violence things like, why are you moving who gave you the right to think, or all that, which sadly isn't that cliche, because horrible people actually think those things. And the way that Wesley ramps up to it, I think there is a definite difference in how they respond, and I think that's why Wesley is so upset at the end, because I don't think that I obviously don't think that he wants to murder Fred, or he feels as strongly as Billy does, or is that misogynistic. I think that Wesley is more casual in his sexism, and he doesn't realize it until this episode.
Right.
Which you don't agree with.
I don't agree with up until a point.
Okay.
I think what you're saying is actually very interesting and has a lot of merit behind it. And I think there is a direct reason why he is broken up at the end of the episode. Like, we don't see Gunn at the end.
No.
But
well, the implication is that he has gotten over it.
Right, exactly. Which maybe, he didn't get to the extreme that Wesley did where he was hunting her down with an axe. but how personally he's taking it. I mean, obviously it has to play into the fact that he has romantic feelings for Fred, but I think they are drawing on his history, and so that there may be something that he feels this unleashed out of him. That there was something that this brought out of him that warrants this kind of how ashamed he is about this act, that he could feel that way or think that way, even though, I mean, obviously this is like a supernatural curse that this was done to him. Like he's never going to go around, killing women and all this kind of things.
I'm not suggesting that Wesley is anywhere has the same worldview as Billy,
right?
Who is just a psychopath.
But I do like the idea that if this stems from like his childhood abuse, that could be something that's kind of imbued into his nature. Like he does have that kind of condescending tone when he talks to, everyone, not just women.
No, definitely. But it's not just women. But okay. So here's why I think that besides the fact that Wesley's ultimate goal was as a career before I met him was to become a watcher who exists to tell a little girl who is infinitely stronger than him what she needs to do and where she needs to go. That was his goal. So it's understandable in any circumstance that he studied since he was born, I'm assuming, to be that. So he might have some misogynistic points of view.
Sure.
I'm failing to think of specific examples, but I know there have been one where the only thing I can think of is when he was arguing with Cordelia in season 1, and Cordelia said she was the top 5% in his class, and Wesley said, "What class advanced bosoms?" That's one. Just off the top of my head. I know there have been others. In this very episode, the way he talks to Cordelia about her training comes off as very condescending. And there is a moment where Cordelia we get a reaction shot of Cordelia, and it's similar to when Fred called her Lassie, where she responds to it, and she's kind of taken aback by it and kind of lets it go. There has to be a reason that they wrote that reaction shot in or included it or whatever to point out something. My point is that he's not to the extreme that Billy is, but I think he does have something in him that he's not aware of how he sounds. And then when you take it to this extreme, he recognizes it in himself, and that's why he feels so bad. If it's just that he has a crush on Fred and now he's going to be uncomfortable, that irks me, because I feel like that I don't think that reflects well on Wesley as a character.
It doesn't reflect well as Wesley a character, and it also kind of cheapens the episode.
Yeah. Honestly. If it's just that he has a crush and he did something bad, and now she won't like him. Like, no, that's really childish. And
well, okay, I'm not going to put it past Wesley to be childish.
I'm saying that it's possible. I don't like that, really.
Right. I think it's complex, which is what I really enjoy. And he has a very immature way of dealing with the romantic side.
Yes, he's like
every nerd in high school or whatever.
Yeah. And he's been like that in besides Ginger McBooby, who was rich. What is her name? Virginia?
Yes, you were inside Virginia.
Yeah.
So, yay, misogyny will... Ginger McBooby.
I remember she had red hair, and I remember she liked to put her cleavage out. Those were her two defining characteristics.
No, she was a warlock's daughter.
Yeah, she didn't have a character, I'm sorry.
I liked Virginia. I miss her.
Miss her cleavage. Besides that actual relationship where he seemed to be a little bit more mature, this feels much more like the Wesley we know, where he's like, I'm not going to say anything. Maybe, I don't know. I don't want to do it.
Yeah, he's nebbish and everything. I didn't read into the beginning scene between Wesley and Cordelia.
But you can deny that he says condescending things. I mean, if you don't want to put it to just women.
Because the thing is, I read it as him doing this boss speech thing that he's been doing lately since he's been in charge. He does put this kind of superiority over others thing because he feels like that's what he has to, that's the image he has to portray. And so to see him kind of,
I could buy that,
weak about, like he doesn't, it to me it feels like he gets very sensitive about if people see him as weak or incompetent, which also stems back to his previous history with the abuse that he suffered from, that they've alluded to with his father.
I do want to say one thing before we move on, because I'm sure we'll talk about it again in other people's comments. But the way that they ramp up to when he's hunting down Fred with the axe, or when he ramp up to him slapping her.
Right.
What he said, the moment that, we know something's up with him when he starts questioning her about where's Cordelia. And then he says, if you lie to me again, we're going to have a problem. Which is almost word for word what he said to Gunn in that old gag of mine. When if you keep something from me again, I don't think he says we're going to have a problem, but he might exactly say that, that line. We're going to have a problem. So I think that suggests a lot about what they're trying to say about Wesley and how it overtakes him. That he starts off almost in character, and then he just gets to a point where he's out of control. Where Gavin and Gunn go from 0 to 100 mid-sentence.
Right, and I like how they explain that with Lila in the episode, that his touch affects people differently, so that difference can,
which I think is just it's trying to explain
why they can have that scene.
I didn't particularly like that explanation because that was just, this is why Gavin punched Lila in the face and Wesley takes about a half hour for it to affect him. That's just, they have to explain a plot hole there.
Well, maybe, but also because if it's in the blood, how much, Gunn
touches the blood, goes upstairs, and then is out. I mean, Wesley touches the blood when he gets the print off the wall.
Right. So, and does the direct touch change, have a stronger effect? I feel like
there's no reason to debate it. It's just made up magic.
It's the supernatural mumbo jumbo that we have for this episode.
Okay. So we spent a lot of time on that one, and there are more issues to get to. That is the biggest issue I think we have, because it comes up in a lot of people's comments. But next up we have Joseph, who said, Billy was an odd episode. I like Cordy and Lila a lot. In general, I like it when the writers do the early seasons Buffy thing of having a supernatural threat be some metaphor for a real-world issue. But the execution of the Billy virus felt beer bad level clumsy, especially dialogue from the various guys under the influence. I think it would have been more effective if they played it like J. August Richards did, use more natural dialogue, but then have the guys get increasingly hostile and resentful. Maybe the writers didn't think we understand if it was sexism without the goofy dialogue. I thought the chase with Wesley and Fred is this show in a nutshell. The show really likes to mine dramatic tension from women in peril, but it's giving the women a lot more agency about it than it did in earlier seasons. I guess it's in Wesley's character to get overly verbose about his sexism, but it sure was annoying. Except for the I have a theory about how stupid you are, which was legitimately chilling and scary. Well, and I guess Wesley's picking on Fred about where Cordy was that how his father belittled him? Last point. I don't really buy the way Angel explained his resistance to Billy's effects. Angel claims that he's past petty things like resentment of women, but that's pretty much the core of Buffy Season 2. It drove Angelus crazy that Buffy had power over him as Angel, and he spent the half of the season systematically undermining that power. Then as Angel, he's a total white knight. I'll buy that Angel has enough darkness in him to hate Billy and the women, not that he's evolved past sexism. So thank you, Joseph. I mean, we didn't really talk about that, but I think, Meg's had a point too that she didn't like how they explained it, and maybe they should have explained it more that he's always constantly fighting a demon. So that's why he can fight off Billy.
Right. I really...
It's dumb.
I mean, it is kind of dumb. I definitely would have preferred something along the lines of, like, oh, I have a murderous demon inside of me already that's continually trying to claw its way out. I don't think... Yeah, it didn't make that much sense, but they had to have some justification for it. I still really like the Cordelia's... it's odd how I'm getting used to being creeped out and comforted at the same time.
Mm. That was pretty... Oh, wait, does that happen at the end? Yeah, it does. I thought it was in the first training scene, but no, you're right. That happens at the end.
Yeah, it's right after the weird explanation for why Angel didn't become a murder bot.
I see. The point is that he says that he's evolved past it, which no. And I think that's where people are having an issue with the fact that men are inherently misogynistic. I think that's where the fact that the episode says that is coming from there. So
right.
Angel's not human, so he doesn't have misogyny in him.
He doesn't count as a man. Mm-hmm. That's the weird, strange message at the end, especially for the wrap up. Yeah,
which in the Wesley scene seems to contradict that, and they're going for both, and they're leaving it vague. The problem is that they don't do a good enough job, I don't think. Obviously they don't, because no one seems to understood it.
Well, I mean, yes, they've kept it vague, but a lot of the time we had some of the people that have been infected have the same lines of dialogue with he was trying to get her to listen. Mm-hmm. Like, I think several of the people react that same way. And they play up the cliches of the domestic abuse speech. I mean, they have, like, Wesley does the what do you say to a girl with the two black eyes?
Does it?
Line.
Well, I'm thinking, as far as Wesley goes, when he starts telling Fred that when he starts picking on what she's wearing. Right. And that men are more visual and men have these desires that women don't even understand what they do to them. Right, or even have it like that whole scene plays up into the stereotypes with the viewpoint of not you have to dress a specific way. And one Gunn tells Fred to stop whining. Right. Billy oddly doesn't seem... I mean, not oddly, because I think it's intentional, but Billy doesn't seem to have much of the stereotypical thing in him. I mean, he talks about her dressing like a man, you think you are a man. But maybe it's just the way that... Because when... I don't buy it from Gunn and Gavin because I don't think it's what they believe, but maybe it's just Billy's performance that I buy that Billy genuinely believes it, so it feels less clunky. Right. And it feels, I mean, he's obviously really very evil, but most of his dialogue are in that airport sequence, and like so you feel like you can dress, like all of his reactions are very quick, and they have a kind of believability for him behind it. Well, that he's so smug about it. That too. Well, he's constantly smug. Well, he is mugging every time he is on screen, and I really do like Billy. Not that I feel that they should have kept him around, but I think that actor did a really good job with. Yeah, it was very disconcerting. Like the scariest scene to me is when he goes to the party and he looks at that couple. Right. And it's the threat of, I can just go over and touch him unless you give me what I want.
Right, that is definitely the most for me. For Billy, that was the best.
We differ on the Fred and Wesley thing, so
exactly.
But here's just the question that no one has brought up, but I think we need to answer: why does his Kennedy-style family want him out of the prison? Because because Billy, that problem's dealt with when he's in the hell prison. And they obviously don't want him getting out. They want to keep him under, like, house arrest.
Is it, I mean, I don't know how many...
Is it just that there's familial affection there?
Or we don't know how many males are in the immediate line of succession? Like, is this a legacy thing?
That cousin seemed more well together than Billy did. I have to be the same.
But
I mean, it's not. What do you mean succession? It's
if they use the line of like these are like the closest thing America has to royalty or whatever. So
they still have to be
the congressman
office.
Sure, but does the congressman have other sons?
Well, the congressman
we
is
don't
his
really
uncle. We don't ever meet Billy's father. I'm just saying that that was what I was thinking. Like, what is the purpose that they get him out of that hell prison?
I'm unsure. I mean, how evil is the congressman is the real question.
Well, yeah, that guy. Got some real issues with that guy. I guess we can just play it off in that he's their nephew or son or whatever, and they don't want him burning in hell for eternity. Fine. Except
that apparently he's gonna burn in hell for eternity.
Now he's dead. It comes up on the commentary track that the original plan for Billy was, and they didn't go with it, and it's not in the episode, though it's not technically canon, but their idea for Billy was that he's half demon. The demon was actually the good person in that relationship, and his father raped her. So it was supposed to be that why he's so messed up comes from a purely human thing, which goes even more about that men are evil, but whatever.
Right. Which I'm...
So they cut that out. Probably, I think they said for that reason, but that was their original idea for Billy.
I mean,
that the evil people are
keeping...
supposed to be... the congressman is just to be just as evil as Billy is.
Right. Like, keeping it vague actually works a lot better. Like, you can have the weird supernatural reasoning for why you have our main characters act a certain way. And saying that there is inherent evil in people is not necessarily so far-fetched.
No.
But I don't like the idea of, this is all men. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I think it's more that there's inherent evil, because the show has maintained that people are kind of awful.
Right.
I think I think they're more saying that people are just kind of awful, not that all men are misogynistic a-holes.
Right.
They don't do a great job in this episode of saying that, obviously. But I didn't take away from... I took what they were trying to say even before I listened to the commentary track. Because I didn't want that to infect me. But now that I listened to it and they said what they were trying to do, I can see that even more.
Right.
Nobody else can, so that doesn't... I don't think that means they did a good job in that arena.
See, I disagree. I think they...
Well, if nobody else is getting it, that suggests that they didn't do a great job. I think they did a fine job because I got it, but if feedback is anything to go off to...
I guess it hit me in a very different way from feedback, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm the defending proponent on this episode. But
all right. Moving on.
Sure.
Let's keep going.
So... next up, we have Alicia, who says, favorite scenes. Angel and Cordelia training in the basement. Hehe, go team. And oh, by the way, get out. I'm tired of being the dead one. Angel Angel jumped flying up and over the fence of the Bloom estate. Please, I was you, but with better shoes. Cordelia thinks I'm melodramatic. Well, you did say you were going to kill my cousin. That's not melodrama. Melodrama. So you're saying melodrama is exaggerated emotion. That your demoness makes you less petty than humans, almost noble. I mean, in a twisted, dark, and really disturbing kind of way. Thanks. I'm starting to get used to being creeped out and comforted at the same time. I get that. The last Wesley and Fred talk. Bad. Wesley trying to kill Fred. Billy. So, thank you, Alicia.
All right. I really do like what we haven't talked about, the one joke about Cordelia saying that she's a cheerleader so she knows what she's doing and then immediately goes into the routine. Or not routine, the fight moves that she makes a routine.
It's pretty, yeah. It's still a routine.
Yeah.
I like it.
I mean, we kind of touched on the melodrama thing. And that is actually the other part. The Angel can't get petty. Anytime Cordelia says anything like slightly disparaging, he becomes very focused on that, which is almost the definition of petty.
Well, it's also because it's Cordelia. He takes it to heart.
Yeah, but it's still petty. Like, he should focus on other... It's like she says something personal about him being fat or him being melodramatic, and Angel, like the emotionally mature teenager that he is, immediately zeroes in on that, which is why I think that the fact that he's evolved beyond human pettiness at the end is dumb.
Yeah, I mean, we've discussed at length how that doesn't work.
I mean, that's another reason why it's dumb.
Right, exactly. Like, it's inconsistent even in this episode.
Yeah, because if Angel is acting really petty throughout, because he is petty, that's just who he is. Right.
I did like him jumping over the fence. That was cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like a cool stuff.
How did you like when he says, he runs off and he's right next to Wesley, and the next shot, he is down the street.
In what scene?
When Wesley gets the blood print off the wall. Angel runs off and he's like right next to Wesley, and Wesley like looks, and then we see Wesley's like point of view. But it can't possibly be Wesley's point of view because Angel is like 2 blocks down the street at that point.
Nice. I'm going to save more to talk about the last Wesley Fred talk. So.
Okay. So next we have Kanan, who said, thoughts on Billy. First, the parts of this that worked, it was really terrifying to see Wesley get cycled. Dennis turned in a performance that was brilliant and giving chills. So a couple points for being scary. And I'll forgive the horror cliches like, Fred, why sit down just because he said so? Just run, and preferably out of the building. But what was the point of this? That men are all primordial misogynic monsters, and that Angel is the way to move past this. Forgive me if I reject those ideas, so what else can this be trying to say? And let's talk about Lila. The writers know she's a villain, right? But the teaser scene is asking us to be afraid for her. Oh no, a bad guy who tortured Cordelia is in trouble, and I better keep watching. And do we really know Gavin well enough to say he wasn't just attacking her of his own volition? Thanks, musical cue, for letting us know the smiling guy was involved. Setting aside all of this, we did get some great performances from Carpenter and Romanoff, and it was creepy, and I did enjoy Lila's part in the resolution, so he gave it a 58 out of 100. So thank you. I have already said that angers me. Because I think we should care, because Lila's a person.
Right. It's shocking and horrifying.
I don't think they do enough with it, honestly, because that's the thing we go off on to the credits. Her getting beat up, which doesn't go into like any kind of, doesn't recognize her as really a person until we come back to her in the apartment.
Right. The episode makes up for the.
Sorry, that happens, and then there's a while where we don't even. That's not even. No one knows that happened. No one talks about it. We never go back to that till Angel shows up. So it only becomes important that this person was almost killed because Lila does not look good. The only reason I'm thinking she survived is because the security comes in and pulls Gavin off of her. I don't think Gavin stops. I think Gavin goes into there and he would have killed her as much as that husband killed his wife.
See, I still felt like the beginning worked for me because of how, like, it is brutal.
Mm-hmm.
How, like, literally smashes through glass and things. And, I mean, we get to see the aftermath later, but it's, like, really shocking and happens out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And, yes, they need the musical cue to tie it to Billy, but I don't think that really detracts from that moment.
I mean, the musical cue is there, so... Because we don't know that much about Gavin, honestly.
Right. Or Billy, for that matter.
I think it works. I mean, we do not know anything about Gavin, but Gavin's whole thing has been that he's been very controlled. So I think the fact that he goes after her is enough of a hint that something's going on here.
Right, in every interaction we've had, there's been more of a... Like, he hasn't been this straight up. Well,
he doesn't react to her. Like, she comes at him, and he's stone-faced. He's a robot. Like, I would not be surprised if a couple episodes from now, Gavin gets quote-unquote killed, and we lift up his face to find that he's a robot underneath. Like, that would be... He's some super intelligent robot. That would be perfectly in line with his character, honestly.
Right. And so to see him actually react was actually pretty shocking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we haven't seen him enough.
No.
Nor do I necessarily
No, I don't think we really need to. He's like a reaction to Lindsay as a character where Lindsay was too emotional, so let's replace him with a guy who has no emotions.
Yeah, I mean... I don't feel like the episode is trying to say that this isn't all men, even if what you were saying about the commentary suggests otherwise.
No, the commentary says
they cut that out because of.
Oh no, yeah, they cut their intention was people can take it either way. That it's Billy is doing something to people, or Billy is bringing something out in people.
Right, and
we don't have it here, but they said that they have gotten comments. This episode is controversial because they think it's anti-men and people think it's anti-women. And to be honest, if there is a range of emotions that deep, then I do think that they did do something right there.
Right. The episode is good in bringing up the discussion of misogyny and domestic abuse.
I think this is one of their riskier episodes, or the most risky episode they have done, beside maybe even more than Angel Reunion and Angel letting the lawyers die.
Right.
Because this goes out on a line. I think it goes too far, but I wouldn't say that they should stop. Not that it matters, because the show's done. They're not going to listen to us anyway. But... unless we go back in time and whatever, but I don't think the show should stop taking risks like this, even though I don't think this risk paid off for me.
See, I mean, it definitely, I guess it was more affecting for me. I didn't feel like it was being edgy for edgy's sake. I do think it was trying to show how terrible misogyny can be in multiple forms, mm-hmm. and how it had ramped up through the episode.
I want to get to my favorite moment, but we will continue this conversation. Is there anything else you want to say for now?
No, we can move on.
Because we have a comment from Carpe Noctem from Alicia.
So, yay, Carpe Noctem. So Alicia says, to make this simple, after Marcus is in Angel's body, I have called him creepy old perv. Favorite scenes, Angel's smile when Cordelia's complimenting him. Hey, I'm not a eunuch. It's a figure of speech. Find a better one. Cordelia dragging Angel out of the chair and into the office. The conversation about who interviews the hookers. Creepy old perv excited excited and nice that this body has super strength. Creepy old perv vampires don't help people, you moron. They kill them. Cordelia and Fred hitting creepy old perv with baseball bats. Bad. The old guy creeps me out. After creepy old guy is an angel, he is a creepy old pervert. Creepy old perv is wearing Angelus outfits. So, thank you, Alicia.
What I really like about the end of that is he is wearing Angelus outfits. So, my question is, does Angel have two closets? Where one is just black leather for Angel, and then he has a whole, or he like has a box where there's all Angelus outfits? Or does Angelus just go on a shopping spree when he comes out and just buys multicolored clothing?
Well, so you know how like Angel is always like resisting the urge to murder people because he has a demon inside of him?
Yeah.
I feel like he goes out to these stores.
That's how he releases.
Get that one. Get that one.
So he releases by buying Angelus clothing?
That he never wears,
like his
except for when he goes evil.
Because I imagine Angel's closet looks like Fred Flintstone, just the same outfit for every day.
See, I'm just hoping... Well, I was more hoping like he has some elaborate closet that goes on forever and ever and ever.
And it's nothing but black. It's just darkness. He probably has a room in the Hyperion that is nothing but trench coats.
I believe it. There was something satisfying about Cordelia and Fred hitting Angel with a bunch of baseball
you had
bats.
something positive to say about Carpe Noctem. I did not see that happening. Anyway, let's move on to an episode you do like, which you might be mistaken in liking, as far as I'm concerned.
Fair enough.
All right, so favorite moment, I just want to talk about it now because I bit my tongue about it.
Sure.
So, it is... I do think it's a little bit sloppy that they connect it to domestic violence. But then Cordelia has her speech about it, and I kind of don't care, because she tries to connect it. She says that a guy did the vision things to her, when really it's Lila. And Calpan was just kind of the tool Lila used. So it's a bit sloppy that Cordelia connects the visions to domestic violence. But, that all being said, I love that moment, not only because it's the first moment that Cordelia is able to reach Lila, and I do think there's a misconception among people that the worst part of domestic violence isn't the pain, it is the psychological toll that it takes on people, and the fact that it wasn't that Cordelia was in pain when she was getting the visions, it was that she was helpless, and everything she says about Billy is so powerful and so economical about this is why this guy is terrifying, and it's maybe the most terrifying thing that they've ever faced. That's all.
Right. Right. No, it did a wonderful job of getting the message behind the episode, and I loved, like, we have never seen these two characters really interact.
This is the first time they've ever met.
So having, like, it's so, like, quick-witted, and having them have this, like, verbal sparring match, like, worked so well.
Well, it's a verbal sparring match, and then it goes immediately into that.
Right, and I love how she twists it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it catches Lila off guard.
Mm-hmm. And I particularly love no one who's strong enough to wear the mantle of vicious bitch would ever put up with this.
Right.
Which I do like. I didn't say it yet, but I do like that Fred is able to save herself from Wesley without being a bitch, because I don't think that women should... Oh, well, I'm not saying... I don't think they should portray... The only way that women can be as strong as men is if they're bitches. But for Lila and Cordelia, that's who they are.
Right, exactly.
And Fred's just... I wish they could find a different way to do it with Fred, because I think all they could think to do was to have her make this mousetrap elaborate Home Alone thing at the very end, where I would like throughout she's trying to do something and it keeps failing, And then she taps into her genius science brain and able to build this trap. Because otherwise she's just running. And that's what I had a problem with.
I mean, we do have her grab the nails, knee him the crotch, and scratch his face.
Yeah. But before that, she's hiding underneath the bed.
Right. I mean...
Which I would be too, honestly. But, I mean, Fred's reaction to it, besides the fact that she doesn't get out of the hotel for whatever reason, would be a pretty understandable reaction that she would just run away from this guy. But it's also a television show where they could at least show Fred doing something. And it's very easy to write Cordelia and Lila just being bitches and shooting people in the back or having a crossbow to somebody's jugular, as opposed to doing something clever that's going Fred using her brain to get out of the situation.
Right. I mean, they conveniently have her like try and run out the door, but then he like grabs her and throws her to the stairs, so she runs up the stairs. And I don't know, the Hyperion is so massive that, I mean, I don't know. She obviously tries to just hide as opposed to like, I need to find an exit. They could have done it a little bit differently, but I still felt it was pretty effective for me. Mm-hmm. But as far as my favorite moment, I went with the last scene between Fred and Wesley. It's kind of, I mean, it's rare when we get to have complex scenes and have complex feelings about characters. I really do like...
They don't spell out what's going on there.
Right.
Which is rare for the show, honestly. Like, they don't just let things lie. Like, someone eventually... Like, they'll have maybe a mystery for a little bit about what was really going on, but then I'll explain it. Where this is completely ambiguous.
Right. And they've done that a lot with Wes's character. Mm-hmm. Like, that they've alluded to a lot of things with his past and then this, his, like, how he reacts to this situation. I love how they shoot the scene. Like, he can't look her in the eye. The way he portrays the scene where his voice subtly cracks when he says, "I'm so sorry." I like that Fred is direct and comforting, but the distance between the two of them seems so wide. The way they shoot that scene, there's a really long pause where they don't say anything, but they're just separated.
Mm-hmm. I do like that Fred is gotten completely over what happened to her.
Right.
Like, it doesn't traumatize her. When it easily could have. Because honestly, if it happened like 2 weeks ago, Fred would have been back in her cave room again.
Right.
So at least this confirms that we're keeping with a stronger, more emotionally centered Fred.
Right. And having, like, I like that it ties into the beginning with, you know, he's finally has romantic feelings towards her, and just kind of how, like, he thought that was going to go that way. No, that, like, they couldn't be farther apart.
Sure, if you're into that relationship. Which was not established before this episode.
It wasn't established, no. But having... I still felt like it could be very natural for him to have those kinds of feelings. Mm-hmm. And
I like the little detail that when we see Wesley in the room, that there are tissues scattered all over, which is not subtle, to be honest, but it worked for me a lot, that he's just been crying so much that there's tissues all over the place. And when he turns, the side of the face we see is the side where she scratched him.
Right.
And the moment when we see him break down on his side of the door, and I like that we end on her hearing him and unable to comfort him.
Right. And it just, it plays so well into, like, it accessed the emotion for me. Like, I definitely felt in that moment. And it plays into how he doesn't want to show necessarily weakness, I guess. Mm-hmm. And just how ashamed, like all of the feelings that he must be feeling. Like I felt sympathy for him, even though he just did a terrible thing, but it was done to him. I don't know. There was just a lot of emotion going on in that scene that they were able to bring out onto the screen.
I agree. I have a little bit of mixed feelings that Fred, I mean, like I said, I like that she's gotten over and she's dealt with it off screen and she's completely fine with it. I do have a little bit of a problem that Fred being victimized is about Wesley. So that's
sure.
I do really like that scene. I'm just saying.
I could see someone having issues.
Like, I don't have a huge issue with that. I'm just a little bit.
So scores.
Okay, so I gave this a 65. And I don't really... I could elaborate more on that, but I think it's pretty clear. Because I don't think this is a bad episode. I don't feel like it's clinically written the way majority of feedback feels. The problem I do have is I think they linger too much on the Fred and Wesley thing, and I guess they might be a little bit unclear on what they're actually trying to say. But when you mix that with the Cordelia and Lila stuff, which is just fantastic, I think this is the best Cordelia episode we've had in a long time and possibly ever. I think this is even better than that Vision thing, because that episode ultimately becomes about Angel, not about her.
Right.
Where this is like she's in control, and even though Angel shows up and saves her, whatever.
So I like this a lot.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
From a lot of different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
You remarked on Cordelia. I love that she's one step ahead of Angel the entire time. I thought that the episode had an urgency to it, especially at the beginning of the episode. I like whenever they're trying to put the clues together, and there's a real threat with Billy. They ramped up through the episode significantly so that there was this building tension that I was really on the edge of my seat towards the end of the episode. And I was actually fearing for Fred's safety, and like the betrayal that Wes has when he's gone psychotic was really affecting for me, and it was able to access a lot of emotion out of me. I'm giving this an 81 out of 100.
Do you want my reaction for that? Because I feel like you really need to justify your score by your like half-a-minute explanation about why you gave it.
Sure. I mean, I can go longer.
No, I don't. I think you've done enough.
I mean, I do enjoy talking about this episode.
No, I think this is one of our more interesting podcasts, and I think the episode deserves some margin of credit for facilitating that discussion. I just don't feel that highly about it.
No, but it was able to access that emotion in me, you know. And anytime an episode can do that for me, I definitely give it higher marks. So I do. It's not subtle or anything, and I'm not putting this in best episodes ever, but there were so many great moments that really stood out for me.
I feel like you're not confident in your opinion of it. Like you're afraid that people are going to attack you for it, which I don't think you should be. I don't agree. That doesn't negate your opinion of it.
No, exactly. I am worried about getting...
oh, well, don't worry. People hate you. They hate me. They don't hate you.
I believe it. Stand up for yourself, man.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, I really do love this.
Okay.
So.
Well, that's fine. I mean, this is becoming like therapy hour, but I feel like you want some kind of justification for me about why you love this, and I can't give that to you.
No, that's fine. I don't need justification.
All right. Well,
I'm just worried about
a lot of explanation about why you like this, like you're anticipating some kind of blowback.
No, I just wanted to make sure that
Okay.
I got to address my feelings, because we talked at length about some of the negative issues about it.
Yeah, you are the only
if I get to...
You're the only voice that is positive about this episode.
Right, and that felt like I needed that moment to be like, here's why.
Okay.
Anyways, if you'd like to leave us some feedback, you can do so by commenting on the post at theangelrewatch.wordpress.com.
Or you can send an email to angelrewatch@gmail.com.
Or you can call our voicemail number at 206-203-3276.
You can go to the Tumblr, which is theangelrewatch.tumblr.com, to see all the reviews archived there and the gifts of whatever episode we're watching.
We're available on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. While you're there, leave us a review. It really helps promote the show. You can follow me on Twitter at NerdGuyWilliam.
And you can follow me on Twitter and Tumblr at TheComfortador.
And next time, we'll be reviewing Offspring, where Darla arrives at the hotel pregnant.